So I just finished watching the Malik Yoba interview with the Breakfast Club, and I have a lot to say. Y'all already know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on. So first and foremost, let me shout out Nala Simone and David Johns for being a part of this discussion. Let me tell you something. I learned so much from you all in this interview. And the only reason why I watched this interview is to talk to my supporters and my audience about what happened and what was said. And I will say that you all made this space safe for me to enter in because I knew I was walking in a space and engaging in a space that hasn't been, very kind to people in my community. We saw how they did Janet Mock after Little Duval got on there. And we saw the disrespect and some of the guests they've had on there and had these conversations that oftentimes are misogynist and transphobic, homophobic, all of it. So, thank you all for being a part of that. Also, I'm going to give a little, kudos to the Breakfast Club for engaging in a conversation that is needed to be had. And looking at the comment section under the Breakfast Club tells me what is going on. It tells me that you all need to have more conversations like this. You cannot wait till something starts trending and something happens to engage in this conversation. You need to have more trans folks on your show. You need to have more non-binary folks on your show. You need to have more queer folks on your show. You need to have these people have these discussions because people need to hear it. And the more they hear it, the more folks will start leaving. But at the same time, capitalism plays a part of that, because if we start losing the audience and we start turning people away, we ain't gonna be able to make as much money. So sometimes you see that capitalism upholds some stuff, and it's really not beneficial to nobody at the end of the day. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to get into this whole interview. So now that I got that out the way, I think Malik Yoba did a great job of discussing his upbringing. And I love the discussion about not coming out, but stepping in. That's what Malik said. I'm stepping in, I'm stepping up. I'm not coming out, I'm just, stepping up and having a conversation about my life. I did appreciate that. And I even loved even more how David said that the coming out is something that white gays use to be able to move into neighborhoods and to take more pride and to something, get more power, draw power from, being gay or being out or whatever. At the same time, black and brown folks are not allowed that. When black and brown folks are being denied jobs, housing, basic human rights, and they don't have the same ability to be able to come out. And also this coming out thing is kind of like it comes with trauma, and I didn't recognize that as someone who I don't think I've ever did a coming out video on this channel, but I have talked about like my experience coming out, and it's not like a one moment where I said, you know what, yeah. I think it's always been me. It's always been in my spirit, in whatever you want to call it. And oftentimes when people do explain their coming out process, it is a lot of trauma that comes with it. So I definitely agree with David for saying that, because my experience was like tragic. I had to come out 3 times to my mother. I love my mother to death, but I had to come out almost 3 times to her because she didn't believe me, and I came back in because I did not want to be ridiculed. I did not want to go through all of that. So even though I knew, I tried to fight it, but that's another conversation. So I'm more on David using the inviting in, because it's like, make space for me to feel comfortable with sharing my identity in my life. So yes, there was so much. And let me tell you something. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave the comments on this video, because I want people to just sit and learn. I don't want it to be a debate about, I'm offended by the term cisgender, because I saw a lot of that in the Breakfast Club's comments, and people were saying, well, that's offensive to call me a cis person. I don't want to hear that, da 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 da. No, ma'am. If anything, we are, expanding the space for folks across the spectrum. No one is taking the ability for you to be able to say that you're a woman, and nobody's taking the ability for you to say that you're a man. But we're saying cisgender. We're saying that you agree with the identity that you were assigned at birth. that you identify with that. So with you saying that, I'm offended by the term, how do you think a trans person who's literally been, assigned something that they don't agree with based off of something a doctor said with some tools? I love that David said that, because it also allows this conversation to be had about how we are right now using, the technology or whatever we have at the time to be able to determine something. But we all know that technology forever evolves, and we don't know what rubric or whatever will be changed, will be used to judge folks or be able to put something. So it's like, girl, this isn't. So with this new term, the cisgender, trans, and all this, these are new tools we're using to be able to identify and say, this is what it is. We're learning. It will never be the same stuff. And the binary system has hurt so many people more than it has helped. So I'm not understanding how it is a problem for folks to be offended by a term cis. It's not taking anything away from you. It's making more space for folks who identify across the spectrum. Like, my spirit was filled hearing these conversations. I'm just here for it. And I love that, Nala didn't have any problems. Nala Simone, y'all need to follow her. That is a very intelligent black woman. I love that she brung Malik in several times when Malik, said some things that was just like, no. Even when Malik was having trouble trying to explain the term cis, and he was using naturally born.
For all of you cisgender women, naturally born women who think that trans women
assigned, not naturally born, again, not naturally born. Nothing about it is natural.
I told you I make mistakes.
Nothing about that is natural.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, for women, what's the language I should say?
Assigned female at birth.
Okay, so for women who are assigned female at birth and stick to that,
and for whom that is consistent with how they identify,
and for whom that's a lot of words.
Stick with it.
Okay.
You are in a commitment for a stance. So
Yes,
do the
ma'am.
work.
Yes, ma'am.
Do the work.
It's like, girl, no man, we're not going to use naturally born. And then they got back into the conversation. So let me talk about a couple of points in the video that I did love. So Malik is explaining his childhood, and he starts with the conversation of Reese Willoughby. That is the young man who came out and said that he dates trans women, and he was harassed on the street, and he died by suicide. You all know that I rather use the term died by suicide because that person did not take his life because they were the problem. They took their life because everybody else was the problem, and they pushed that person to the point. And that's another conversation about how I feel about suicide, but I ain't gonna talk about that too much. I'm gonna save space for that on For the Culture podcast. I feel like there needs to be more context around that. But Malik was just sharing that, that made him think about that could have been him. That could have been him going through this situation of being harassed and stuff. And that kind of like stopped him, because he tells his story of him being attracted to this woman, because trans women are women. I don't care what BET Black Girls Rock is telling you and what these conversations about. Trans women are women. He was telling this story of this attraction he had to this woman, and he was a little bit confused because he's like, what's going on? Well, where are you from? Like, who are you? And she was a trans woman. So he was wrestling with that at the age of 16. And there was no space. He talks about he didn't have any spaces to talk about these things. He had any, he didn't have nowhere to like talk and say what is going on. And it reminded me of how I felt, when I realized that I'm not like everybody else. Like, I've been told that since I have a penis, I should be attracted to women who have vaginas, quote unquote. So I should be attracted to them. And I'm noticing, like, this ain't what I like. Like, although I do identify as a cisgender male, I have same gender loving feelings. Like, I am attracted to men, and I honestly I'm really here for this non-binary conversation where it's saying I am not going to be following your binary system of male female. And I think even with that being said, there would not be a need for folks to be saying that, oh, I'm gay and all this. Like, it's so much. But I'm gonna stay on topic. It's so much. But I'm just thinking it's a lot going off, like fireworks popping off in my brain right now. I felt Malik when he said that, because he was in a space where he was confused of what was going on, because the things that have been taught to him, the things that he has saw, and the things that have been promoted in his face, TV, media, all of that, is that, you going out of the social norms, what is the tea? So you're trying to figure out at an early age, Like, what's going on? And Malik said that he knew then. Now, one thing I will say, and I'm gonna jump to the gun, they did not bring up the conversation about Mariah, the trans woman who said that she accused Malik of, paying her for sex when she was a minor. And Malik responded to that with a little freestyle battle or whatever. They did not dive into that conversation. Probably something they talked about before they got on there. I'm kind of glad they did not a little bit. I still am kind of listening and hearing Mariah's conversation, because I believe there is some truth to that. But I like at the same, not to dismiss her story to say that it's not true, and I'm not going to say that it's true or not. But I think in the same right, if someone is telling me that this happened to me, I went through this sexual trauma, I went through this sexual assault, I'm going to get to the truth by allowing you to tell your story. Period. If the more you tell your story, the more the truth is going to come out. And like, that's just point blank and period. So they didn't get into that discussion, but Malik, you can tell that Malik had been attracted to trans folks. He had been in relationships whatever with trans folks, and not like a relationship or like in a relationship or relationships as sex. You can tell by the conversation, and he was still like dealing with being comfortable saying that in that very moment. And I was listening to Kiss and Tell Radio. Shout out to my good sis Shar and Jace over at Kiss and Tell Radio. I love their podcast. And Shar was talking about that she had been heard stories about Malik Yoba, having dealings with trans women and stuff. So it wasn't a shock to a lot of trans folks when he came out and said that. So they also get into the conversation about trans attracted. We've seen that term when Malik came out. People, like, headlines were running around and saying that he was trans attracted. And I love how Nala said, she responded, she said that
that's the important piece about relationship building, because everyone identifies differently within the community, right? Mm-hmm. You have some folks who will say transgender women. You have some folks who will say women of trans experience, because that's how they feel. And then also you have like when you had Janet Mock, she says some folks reclaim the term tranny. So, like, I know for damn sure you ain't going to call me that, right? Because I don't feel affirmed by that. But for some folks, they take power in that, and we shouldn't take that from them. There's also this term non-binary, right? So we know cisgender is a part of the binary construct. Mm-hmm. And if y'all don't know what that means, there's Google.
That whole term comes off like a fetish to her. She said, when I hear it, I hear fetish. And she also talked about, my experience is different. I don't have any problems with, trans folks who don't mind the term trans attracted, but for me, I don't like it. She also said that, there's some people who have reclaimed the term T with the N and with the Y. And she said that that's not how you're going to address me, and I don't want to be addressed. And she talked about relationship building, and I feel like that is so important for us to go forward with people, is that we need to build relationships. Also, I did love, once again, how Nala called in Malik when Malik made a point to say that he didn't know that Nala was a trans woman. And I was in a space, I never forget, last year with a person who didn't seem like they were just being malicious or whatever, but they did tell a trans woman that, I didn't know you were trans. And there are a lot of trans folks who do not see that as a compliment, because trans does not have a look. And oftentimes when people are using it as a compliment, it's dismissive of the folks who quote unquote can't pass. And I had a discussion about that on Facebook where someone said, well, some people do take that as a compliment. I ain't gonna tell trans folks what to feel, but at the same time, it is kind of dismissive to other trans folks who quote unquote cannot pass. So it's the same thing for me when people will say, well, I didn't know you was HIV positive. I would have never known. It's like, what are you saying? You're saying that HIV has a look? Or are you trying to, and that's based off a stigma of saying that all HIV people are looking strongly and like they about to pass out or they look sickly or whatever. But no, girl, I'm thick as hell, and I am HIV positive. So I definitely feel that. So as you can see, this video is a little bit lengthy, and I'm trying to do a lot because I feel like I'm having two internal conversations with myself, because I'm talking to folks of the trans experience on the LGBTQIA spectrum, and I'm also talking to folks who are not, who don't understand it. So y'all bear with me. I hope that y'all are getting this, but I will say that this interview it could be triggering to some. I think it can be triggering to some who like, girl, I don't know about it, but I will say that, I loved I loved when David had told them that they have to stop thinking about, what someone has, this genitalia type of conversation about, so what did we call you when did you transition and why is this important? Like, why is that so important to you, for you to know? And also, because I'm going to tell y'all too, Miss Nala was on it. Miss Nala even pressed Charlamagne about the Lil Nas X conversation. The saying that I don't care what you identify as, I don't care about you being gay or what you're attracted to, but it is taken away and it's dismissing my very existence. That you don't see that, you need to recognize it. And I hate to use it as an example, but it is how white people engage in conversations about race, where they say they don't see color, and Nala talked about that. I loved every moment where Nala, David Jones, and I think it's important for people, my black and brown folks, to listen to these conversations, because whether you like it or not, whether you're not interested in it, whether you don't care, you are bringing in, some of you all are bringing in a new generation into this world. And you cannot be out here thinking that that's not going to happen. You might be very much so raising a child that is trans, who is non-binary. Like, do not dismiss these conversations, because it's the same way with, my father was very homophobic. I love him to death, but he was very homophobic. And not to say that all homophobic people and transphobic people gonna give birth to trans folks and queer folks, but just saying that we are all in this work together, and we got to work together, and y'all can't be out here dismissing us. We lost 2 trans women this year. We lost 2 trans women within a week. Both of them were murdered, and I loved how Nala said, I'm not gonna say they died. They didn't die naturally or whatever. They were murdered.
Labor Day weekend, 2 young people died, and we aren't talking about it.
I said you were testing.
I covered you to say murder, because oftentimes we say die, but I think we gotta say what it is. It's murder. It's not. They didn't. Yeah, they got murdered.
Yes.
Brutally.
Yes.
Right. And so oftentimes we fluff around they die like as if it was like they naturally died.
Well, forgive me. I didn't mean that.
No. That's why they were murdered, and we have to take now. So you saying that you don't see that, and you creating these spaces where people to say negative things about trans folks, bring up stuff like that. Y'all are exacerbating, if that's the word I'm going to use, if it's the correct term, but y'all are, pushing this agenda. Y'all are pushing these folks out. Y'all are taking away from their humanity, which causes folks to not see them as human. When you say you don't care, or you don't, when all these negative comments in this Breakfast Club, so we're just going to ignore genetics and chromosomes altogether. Did this dude just say doctors choose the gender? You just lost all the credibility to me. I'm done. When y'all saying all these conversations up, y'all are the very reason why trans folks are being murdered out here in the streets. Every time you post a comment like this and dismiss trans folks' lives, you are complicit in the murder of trans women. Every time you post this stuff and you get 300 likes and 400, you are making it comfortable for someone to take the humanity from trans folks, and you have got to stop it. We have got to stop it. I am tired of seeing my trans folks being killed. I am tired of getting online every week and seeing that there's a new trans woman who has been killed. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart. And these people are real folks. And I don't want it to be a situation where I'm expecting this every week. This is not right. These folks are living their lives, and they're being killed in some of the most brutal ways. So I'm not understanding. Like, we are not giving these folks humanity. And it's not funny to be kicking. You just had Kaya on here laughing about, and I watched the live. And she just kept misgendering T.S. Madison. She kept saying, say what you want about T.S. Madison, the work she's done, or whatever, and how you feel about her. But to misgender her, it's terrible. And T.S. Madison can respond, she can clap back, all of that, but at the same time, everybody ain't built like T.S. Madison to be able to take their hatred, and T.S. Madison should not have to take it. She should not have to deal with that. She should not have to. So when we say things like Dave Chappelle is just jokes and they dragging folks across the board, no, not when you are complicit and taking the humanity away from people. That's what you are doing. As a comedian, as a stand-up comedian or whatever, you have to be able to evolve with the times. Like blackface was still like considered comedy years ago. Like white folks dressing up as black folks was comedy. Black folks wearing jigaboo type of stuff, that was comedy at one point. So comedy is forever evolving once we are learning that, woo, this is garbage. And we cannot be complicit and take the humanity away from folks, period. So that's that on that. Probably will, I don't know, dive into this conversation a little bit more. I'm working on a couple of things. I love y'all so much for watching the video, for checking it out and being interested in it. Is there anything that I have left out of this conversation you want me to talk about? Please let me know, because I do not mind doing a part 2 or a live to discuss this more in detail, because I want people to understand I am working with one of my friends who is very intelligent and well-spoken on gender, and non-binary stuff. Y'all not seen them before, but he will be on here. His name is Deontez, and I love him so much. But tell me what y'all think, girl, however, because the comments might be disabled, but if you want to engage, you know where to find me at on Instagram, King of Reads, Twitter, The King of Reads, all of it. I love y'all so much, and until next time, I'll talk y'all later on tonight. Bye.